Um, but things began to change in my house. My mum just decided one day there must be more to life than this, and there was a little church that had just started, and she went along to it.
Was that the only experience you had with sort of religion and God then before your mum went off to church, or did you not really give it much thought?
No, well, I knew what Christianity was,
Yeah.
but by that time I was an atheist. I mean, how could there possibly be a God when he allows all this stuff to go on?
Mm.
So I was an atheist. I believed in evolution. I would argue and debate with Christians, try and make a fool of them as much as I could. There was one guy that I was working with, a guy called James Youngson. I used to throw fish boxes at him, just to try and make him swear,
Mm.
and he didn't, never did, and I couldn't get over that. But Jesus, God, Christianity was just a big fairy story, really, to me. But my mum went to church. She came home one day and she said to me, she said, "I've become a Christian." And I thought to myself, well, it's not her that needs it, it's my dad.
Mm.
Now, where did even that thought come from?
Mm.
And my mum sat me and my sister down and said, "Look, Dad's Dad's a mess, but I'm going to ask him to go to church, and I've prayed and asked Jesus to save me. I'm going to ask God to save him."
Mm.
And I went, "What are you on about? That's never going to happen." Well, 6 days later, after my dad went to sea, he came home, was drunk, and I mean, there's a lot of things happened before that, mate. He knew the pastor of the church, a guy called Tony, who was a milkman. He was a part-time milkman, a part-time pastor,
Mm.
and he was a great guy. He would go to the football with my dad, and so my dad knew him,
Mm.
respected him, um, and so there was a relationship going on there. But my dad really, for the first time, really went to church then, um, and that Saturday night, he came back sober, a different man altogether. Um, and you could see that in his face. There was something just different about him. And he sat with me and he said, "Look, Alistair, I want you to forgive me. I've done things that are horrible, and I'm never going to do them again." And I went, "Yeah, right." Because I'd seen it all before, because he'd put the whiskey down, well, whatever he drank, whiskey and rum, it was his drink. And he put all those down the sink. But this time he put it down the sink and there was something different. Because the atmosphere in the house was different. The attitude of my dad was different. But I wanted to see whether this was real.
Mm.
And unfortunately, I would put alcohol around the house to see if he would drink it. I'd put pornography around the house to see if he'd look at it. Hoping that he would do something, because deep down I realised that if this changed his life, it was real.
Mm.
And if it was real, it meant that I had to do something. And I didn't really want to do anything. I was, not that I was happy in my lifestyle, but that was my lifestyle.
Mm.
I didn't want to change it.
Yeah. So he poured all the alcohol down the sink. You put that out, and he didn't touch it. Previously, you said to me that he told you that he loved you. Was that sort of the first time that he told you that, or was it the first time where he told you it and you thought, "Wow"?
This is the first time that he told me that, and I knew he meant it.
Mm.
And that was hard to deal with. It was strange, because here was a guy now that I particularly didn't like, because of how he had made me feel and how he had made me act and react. And so that I had to deal with that over the years. I've had to deal with that.
Mm.
But at that time I just couldn't. So I just thought, after a while, I need to get out of this, because either he's gone mad, the alcohol's gone to his head, or this is real. And either way, I don't want to know. I want to get out.
Yeah.
So that's how I reacted. So I went to my work one day and I thought, I know what to do. I'll get married. and if I get married, that'll get me out of the house. I was just over 16. I was between 16 and 17, I think I was. And I looked over and I thought, yeah, she'll do. I'll marry her. That's the kind of dysfunctional thinking, dysfunctional thought, dysfunctional family that I was in. And she was a nice girl. Came from a nice family, really. But obviously she must have been a bit dysfunctional to have any kind of liking to me. Because our existence really was, or our relationship was alcohol. And our relationship was abuse, really. Not physical abuse, but just verbal, and it wasn't very nice, really. But I asked her to get married within a few months, and she decided, yeah, and we were going to get married. And I thought, this is the way out of this. But more and more, my dad's life really spoke to me. The more I watched him, the more I seen him, there was such a difference, such a love. And even though there was the anger in me and there was the trying to push him away, he just... I remember one day coming at the house and my mum and my dad on their knees on the settee, at the settee, and hearing them praying for me and my sister. And I suppose that really affected me. But again, that effect was...
Yeah, this is a man who's been abusing you and abusing your family.
Yeah.
To then see a complete shift.
Yeah.
Must have been...
It was quite a shock.
Life-changing, life-shocking, shocking.
It was quite a shock because, you know, you think to yourself, this is what you wanted. This is what I wanted. I wanted my dad to be different. I wanted my dad to be loving. But now that he is, I couldn't cope with it because I was swiftly going the way that my dad was, not knowing how to show love, not knowing how to care for people, not knowing how to act and react in situations, just like my dad didn't. How were you to act? How were you to do things?
And this bitterness, was it just still growing towards your dad, or has it started to grow towards this God who you said at the time didn't exist? Because if it did exist, then all this stuff that had been happening to me wouldn't happen.
Well, at that time, God didn't really mean anything to me. I was an atheist, as I said, but the more I watched my dad, the more I started to think, man, there must be something in this. There must be something in this. And I remember, I suppose one thing that really speaks to me now that I don't know if it spoke to me then, but when I was with this girl, she said, "This is where we're going to get married in this Church of Scotland. We need to go here because we need to show face." Well, she did go to church. She went to this Church of Scotland, which was, you know, I didn't know at the time, but it was a liberal church. It didn't believe the gospel. It didn't believe the things that Christians should believe. And the guy would tell little stories and try to apply the story to something, but how on earth he did it, I don't. But anyway, I remember going to this and listening to him, and the girl said to me, she said, "Well, so what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I'm not coming here. That guy doesn't even believe in the Bible. He doesn't believe anything." Now, where did that come from? You know, I mean, at the time, that's what I thought. At the time, that's what I knew. But looking back now, obviously, there's a God moment, as it were. And this just changed my life. I said to the girl, I said, shortly after we finished, shortly after, I just realised I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to get married in this. This is just a farce. It was like a light being switched on. Now, I mean, I didn't deal with it very well. I didn't deal with her very well. I was childish and pathetic. And I know I had to go back and apologise to her, and I did. But it was the best thing that happened to me and to her, because really it was a moment that God really started speaking into my life.
And the impact that your dad's sort of change had on you, that led to a moment in your life where you also experienced some sort of change, and you met God, and God changed your life. Tell us how you got to that point.
Well, again, as I said, you know, the girl and me finished, and I was at a loose end, as it were. My mum said, why don't you come to church? So I was going along to church. I went along to church, to her church, that with this minister who was a milkman and I knew him.
Football, yeah.
Yeah, I loved football, and I would go to the football with him, and I would watch him, and I'd watch my dad, um, shouting at the referee, but no swearing, no taking the Lord's name in vain, and I'm like, what? How did they do that?
Mm.
And my dad, just being he was still the life and soul of the party, but the party had no alcohol in it,
Mm-hmm.
and the party had no swearing or anything like that in it, and I just amazed. And so as I was going to church, I saw people's lives who I knew showing reality, showing Christian reality, that you could live in the world that I lived in and not be the same as me and be happy. And that just blew my mind.
Was that the difference you saw in them from their past, that you could see actually they're content here, they're happy, they're joyful?
Yeah.
And did you want that
Yeah.
at the time?
Yeah, I did. I did want it, but I wasn't prepared to pay the price.
There's a song I listened to recently, and it says this, maybe this sort of so I don't want to go all weird and start, but yeah,
it's okay.
It says it's sort of what culture tells us to do even now. Maybe it was the same back then, but it says, I've been told to live my own truth and do whatever makes me feel good. Get rid of boundaries. The rules are stifling. Chase good feelings that soon will be gone. But this is what it says. But I found myself more lost than ever, enslaved and bound to my desires, and that's not freedom.
Yeah.
Does that sort of sum up?
Very much so.
Your life?
I don't know that song, but very much so. Yeah. I thought I had freedom, but really I was bound.
So how did that all change?
I went to, as I said, I went to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could hardly read or write, and the only Bibles at that time was the authorized, these and thous. And I was given a Bible, an authorized Bible. Well, actually, I think I found it because I didn't want anybody to know I was reading it. So I'd be in bed reading this Bible, or trying to read it, trying to understand it, not really knowing what it was, and then I watched these videos, speaking about Jesus coming again, and I'm like, wow, this is scary, frightening stuff. So all my mates thought that I was going to church because there was a girl there, and I was quite happy for them to know that or think that, but it was nothing to do with it. I was going to church because I saw something different, and I realised that there was a God. I realised then and there that Jesus Christ was real. Because of all that was going on, because of what I'd read, because of what I'd seen, because of the lives that were being lived before me, my mum and my dad, I knew that there was a God. I knew that there was Jesus. And so one night I came home from a meeting, and I said to my mum said, would you like to come to an extra meeting? I said, no, I'm going home to put myself right with God. Now that wasn't true. I was going home to put the TV on to forget. Because although I knew, I didn't want to pay the cost, because I knew it would mean to stop drinking, to stop the relationships that I was having, to stop doing the things that I was doing, or no way that I could stop swearing. So how could I do this? I wasn't good enough to do it. So I went home, and I got a knock at the door. I was in the house about 10 minutes. I'd made my tea, sitting watching All Creatures Great and Small or something like that. And he just said, I'm here because God sent me. And I didn't laugh. I didn't think he was crazy. I knew. As soon as he opened the door, I knew. And we went inside. He explained the gospel to me, and I asked a few questions like, how can I keep this? And he was telling me, and he says, it's not up to you, it's God that'll keep you. And he said to me, "So what do you want to do?" I says, I want to ask Jesus into my life." And I got down on my knees. I prayed. Can't remember what I prayed, but I can remember getting off my knees and feeling nothing. I didn't hear any
Have a
sounds,
bright light or anything like that. No.
nothing like that. I just knew that Jesus Christ had changed me. I just knew that God was in my life.